showing if they connect them bloom, oh, bloom, showing if they connect them bloom.
And welcome to the Bloom Show. This is Saeed Naheem, your host, and really excited to have you here today. And why? Because today we have a doubleheader. I just learned that word today. I confirmed that. Doubleheader, just like baseball. We're having two great games. One, we're having Red Kennicott from Kennicott Brothers, and then we're also having Williee Armellini from Flowers and Scents and the Armellini family, or Armellini Brothers, we could call them, right, on the show. And why is it so exciting for me? One, Red Kennicott is a gentleman that's been in our industry for many years, family owned. We're just talking about a book that they created for their employees, but has a great, rich history of in the flower industry. But not just that. Something I truly admire of Red is that he continues to support the industry. Right? It continues to show up to every SAF since 1970 something. Continues to support when we could easily just kind of turn our backs to an industry that's given us so much, but he continues to give to the industry. And I admire that. That's something we believe in our mission as New Bloom Media, New Bloom Solutions. And that's something I want to share and celebrate. So thank you for Red for showing up. And we're also having Williee Armellini, which wrote this book. You see it in a weird color because I have a green screen, but this book, and it's really cool. And I highly recommend it for new people in the industry to buy it for your entire team because it does give you conversation pieces. It does give you insight. And it, most importantly, in my opinion, it allows us to be appreciative and thankful of where we've gotten and how the industry completely changed. So again, I want to mention that this show is by the floral industry for the floral industry. So to me, it's very important for you to chime in, ask questions, give a shout out to Red, to Willie, say, hey, what's up? Happy to see you. Because this is by the floral community for the floral community, and we want to make it a community thing. So on that note, we also ask you to subscribe, like, comment, and share. As we share more information, we all connect, right? We're all well informed. So feel free to share this if you find any value from it. Please feel free to share and also do subscribe. So without further ado, allow me to have Mr. Red Kennicott on the show. Thank you.
Showing if they connect them bloom, oh, bloom, showing if they connect them bloom.
Hey, Red.
Hey, Saeed.
How's it going?
Good. Very well, thanks.
Thank you. It's funny how I always act like I never seen the person, but just saw him a couple seconds ago. But, but nice to see you, Red. Nice to see you. But Red, first off, thanks for joining, and thank you to the audience for joining as well. I know you're busy. And getting ready for SAF, which is going to be a great show. And I know you were mentioning how many years have you been going to SAF?
Since 1973 or 4.
1973 or 4. So there's a
lot
of
convention in Omaha. I can't remember. It was one of those years, though.
Wow. And I've heard of conventions in Hawaii. I wonder when those are coming back.
Sooner the better.
No, yeah, sooner the better. So, Red, thanks again for being on the show. As I said, I do appreciate everything you've done for our industry, and it continues to inspire many. So I just want to start asking you some questions. And I know, first off, this is off the topic. But one thing that I had heard, and we spoke about it briefly, was a book about the history of your family, right? The history of the Kennicott brothers. Can you share a little bit about that history and how the wholesaler, your business came to be, and how you came to be a part of it?
Yeah, well, the origin of our business goes back to my great-great-grandfather taking a land grant in a place called The Grove near Glenview, Illinois. That was in 1836.
Wow.
And he came from New York. He was a nurseryman, so he had a flower and nursery farm right from the beginning. Of course, things were a little different in those days, but he had a lot of different apple trees, a wide variety of nursery products. But growing flowers, he began to sell them to some of the local florists from Chicago, and so two of his sons took over that business, and they established Kennicott Brothers Company in 1881 in downtown Chicago. It was the first, one of the very first wholesale florists in the country in those days. And since then, we've grown over the generations and over the centuries, we've tried to keep up with the industry, and so we're happy to still be here today.
And how many locations do you have now?
We have 13 different operating locations.
Operating locations. And something really cool that I learned, not just recently, but I've known for a while, is that you are employee owned, right? And I think that's important.
Yes, very important. Yes, we've been 100% employee owned for 25 years this year.
25 years. And how do you make that decision to do that, right? Especially a family business. How do you make that decision? I know that's a difficult question, but
well, no, it's a big decision for any family-owned business, and especially in my case, being in the 5th generation. But now it's going back over 30 years ago. I was getting, into when I started time to start planning for succession and retirement, and my wife and I could see that probably none of our immediate family were going to be going to take over the position that I had. And so we started looking into options, and a friend from mine actually was with a bank, told me about ESOPs, which I had heard very little about in those days. So the more we learned, we decided maybe that's a good direction to go. And in 1992, we sold 30% of the company to the ESOP. And things seem to be going well, and we're continuing to have some growth. So then in the year 2000, we went 100% employee owned, and that's what we are today.
100% employee owned.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. And what does that mean for people that are not familiar with that? I'm a little familiar because of working with different companies in the past, but what does that mean for companies that are not familiar?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and what it means is that everybody in the company is an employee owner. So we're all, when somebody deals with our company, they're dealing with an owner in the vast majority of cases. So we try to, as part of our culture, we try to do a good job of communicating about it. We probably could do better, but it's been a good thing for us, and we're happy that we are what we are.
Have you seen, it's just such an interesting topic for me. Did you see the growth of commitment from your employees and culture growth? Did you see a change when you did that move?
I think so. Definitely, we've been able to attract some team members who've helped us grow.
Good call.
And I think because of the ESOP being an owner, that was one of the things that helped attract them to our company. So we feel very good about that.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. I know that was off topic, but it's something that really interests me, and appreciate your candor. So with over 60 years in the floral industry, what keeps your passion for flowers and people so alive, Red?
Well, it's just exactly what you said. It's the flowers, the product, and the people in this industry. We got the greatest product in the world, and everybody loves flowers, and they're getting better every day. And the people in the flower industry are, I think, kind of special. It's a very relationship-based industry, and so it's every day is a new day. And I think it's because of those two reasons, the product and the people, that I'm still here today.
And considering the years you've been in the industry, you continue to give back, right? I know you support the Flower Feeling. I know you support Life in Bloom, SAF. You're involved in everything and anything you can that does positive for the industry. What's that thought process? Because sometimes you'll get naysayers that say, "Oh, you'll never get a return on that." What's the thought process for you? What encouraged you to continue to do that without seeing immediate return?
I think it's a selfish thing on my part. I just really enjoy. I get more out of staying in the industry and learning about it, what people are doing, how the industry is changing. It's fascinating to me, and so it's more receiving than giving, as far as I see it.
I think when you give, you do receive, right? In a way, I mean, you're supporting an industry by doing things that support you. It's just a no-brainer. It's a natural process, I believe.
Correct.
So, Red, what has led you through decades of industry change? You've led decades of industry change, and you've seen it. What has been one of your most defining moments in that journey?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question because there've been a lot of defining moments.
Yeah.
When at my age I started, everything was local.
Yes,
All the
sir.
flowers were growing right in our neighborhood, and the only place you could buy things for flowers was at a florist. Today, it's so many changes and so many differences. But I guess the one particularly defining moment for me was back in the 1960s. I bought my first box, Kennicott's first box of South American flowers. It was a box of carnations that came from Ecuador. Actually, I bought it from an old timer some of your viewers may remember by the name of Dwight Haight, who's still around these days. But I got this box of flowers, came in the door, and the carnations were in totally tight bud. I'd never seen anything like that, and I grew up with carnation growers. And so I called Dwight and I said, "Oh my God, these things they're too tight. They're never going to open." And he convinced me to put them in water and to hydrate them for a couple of days, and they were beautiful. And I thought, boy, the world is really different now. I can get carnations like that and flowers from Ecuador and eventually all over the world. So that really changed things for me in my outlook.
And that's really interesting because next we're going to have Willie on the show to talk about his book, and those are things some things that I highlighted. You're talking about carnations with Peter Hannaford, and just the story behind that is so cool. And I do understand that Florida used to be a grower of carnations as well, and pom-pom and chrysanthemums, and Denver and Colorado, and so it's pretty cool to kind of see how that change everything. And that was in the 70s, right, Red?
That was in the 60s.
In the 60s.
Yeah.
Shipping started happening in the 60s here. So that flip, how long did it take to completely flip it upside down? Because it used to be 80% U.S. grown, and then how long did that take?
Yeah, when I started, it was 100% U.S. grown, 100% local grown. Wow. And so that's evolved over the years. Now today we get flowers from every continent except Antarctica, almost daily.
We'll see what happens.
So it's and the flowers are better because of many reasons, but they, certain areas in the world are particularly good for certain varieties, and it's all seasonal too.
And all seasonal, year round. You don't have to wait. Exactly. And the science of it has made them stronger. So jumping into the Floral Board, I know that's something you had a vision for with USDA promotion order. How is that going? If we can get an update for that, I know that's something that you were pushing a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
not pushing, but supporting.
Yeah, well, it's a long subject and a big subject, but I think the reason is to increase funding so we can try to increase consumption of flowers in the USA. There's countries over in Europe like Holland and Norway. The consumption of flowers is more than double of what USA flower growers are, USA consumers. So for all of us in the flower industry, if we could raise consumption, it would be nice to double it, but even if you could raise it 10 or 20%, it would be just good for everybody. So that's the reason for being behind floral promotion.
And where are we, and what level, what stage are we? Has it been moved forward? Are we still trying to get it done? Where do we stand today?
Well, Floral Board would be a USAID-backed promotion order, a federal promotion order. So we will need to go through a process to get it initiated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and then they facilitate the referendum where all the people who would be paying an assessment will vote on whether they want to approve it or not. And if the referendum passes by a majority of the voters, then Floral Board will be initiated, and it would be governed by a board of members elected by the people. Well, that would be growers, U.S. growers, and importers of record.
Okay.
That would be the majority on that board, and there would be a couple of retail members on it also to represent that part of the industry, and they would determine how the funds are going to be used to market more flowers.
I think it is very important, as you said, to include retail, to include wholesale, to include distributors, everybody involved, because it's a decision that will affect us all.
Yeah, correct. The domestic growers are about, well, consumption today is about 80% imported and 20% grown domestically. That varies a little from time to time and from area to area. And so those would be the people who would be paying the assessments, but the board would be representative of those payers, and it will also include a couple of members of the retail community just to get a good balance as to how the marketing money is used.
Very important, very extremely important. Willie just threw a comment in the private chat, but I'm going to let Willie ask you. I'm going to let him in a second to ask you, because we're doing great with time. So it would be great to have you together chat a little bit. So here you go. What would you say to younger floral professionals or wholesalers about getting involved in advocacy or industry leadership? I do understand for you, it's as you said, it's a selfish self-reward thing, because you want to be a part of it and continue to support. But look, you're a humble man, very humble. It is work. It takes time away from your family. It takes some frustration, some different opinions. What would you say to the new generation in the flower industry? Why is it important to do those self-sacrifices, to continue to encourage or help an industry and support an industry?
Well, there again, I don't consider it a sacrifice. I think it's a privilege to get together with other people in the industry. You always learn from them, and we've got so much potential for the flower industry. And when we're seeing it now, you see the next gen operation at SAF and other industry meetings where there's a whole new generation of the members of our industry who've got a lot to bring to it, with all the emerging technology in particular, so many new products. So it's going to be a fascinating career for anyone who decides to stay in the flower business. So I can't think of a better industry for a young person to join and learn more about.
I agree. I agree 100%. And it's something that is rewarding when you see that you're making a difference and being a part of something bigger. And what I've always said is that right now, the way you and I stand, we've affected at least 1,000 people are smiling because of the work we've done today, right? Because of getting someone flowers in someone's hands today. And I think it's very important that once I realized that, I really started wanting to do more in our industry, because we do affect people's happiness almost, right? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Here's another question. Works big or small, how would it be? So if you could change one thing about the floral industry, how it works today, big or small, what could it be, if anything?
Yeah, I think it's a great industry today. We've got the greatest product in the world. People love flowers. Human beings, ever since the cavemen were drawing pictures of flowers on the wall. It's part of people's lives, and it can be so much more when we see what's going on is some of these European countries and those with higher consumption. So they're just, I wouldn't change anything. I would just try to, I hope I can be around for a few more years to take advantage of all the great opportunities that we have in this industry.
You certainly will. You certainly will. And then last final question before I bring in Willie, and please, audience, please comment, give a shout out to Red. If you have a story, it's always great to read those out. And one final question, Red, is why do you watch the Bloom Show? I know one time I caught you accidentally sneaking into one of our shows, so I know you're a watcher, and you gave me a great letter the other day, which I greatly appreciate. Why do you watch the Bloom Show, Red?
Well, it's fun to watch it, but I always learn something, and you usually have a topic that's very relevant and maybe has a new twist to it. So it's always been fascinating for me to watch.
Red, I appreciate you. Let me let in here Mr. Williee Armellini so he can ask you that question he wanted to ask you. But Red, thank you again for sharing and being so open and for sharing of your time again.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you at SAF. I hope
I'll
to
be
see you
there.
at SAF. Cool. Here, let me let Red in. Or Willie. Wait 1 second. Let me fix this real quick before I let him in. We're going to go with this one. And here comes Willie. Hey, Willie.
Hey, good gentlemen, how are you today?
Hey, Willie.
Hello, Mr. Red. How are you, sir?
Very well, thanks, Willie.
All right.
Good to see you.
Hey, well, my question was, you and I have been doing this a long time, Red. You longer than me, but nonetheless, we've both been doing it a long time. And in terms of Floral Board and the promotion, what happened with Buzz the Bee? That was part of the original funding, right? That we did have. And he was sort of
that was a promotion order back in the 90s. It was a slightly different group, and that was it had a delayed referendum. So Floral Board was in existence. Actually, we got up to $11 million in advertising money back then, and Buzz the Bee is what those who were around remember. But it did get defeated in a vote on the referendum, and there's some misunderstanding about it. There were some people in the industry who didn't feel it was right for them, so it got voted down at that time.
Yeah, I think the domestic growers or somebody was fighting it. I forget exactly how that all panned out, but we've been down this road before. So and I don't know that did they ever determine there was positive response to Buzz, and that was there a bonus?
Oh yeah, I think there was some data, and now I can't give you the exact data, but I think they were getting for every dollar spent, there was more than $6 in additional flower revenue.
Okay.
And then promotion orders have that history. There's a number of successful promotion orders that sometimes as high as 10 or 12 times the multiple of the dollar that's spent on promotion. So it's definitely proven that promotion works, and that a promotion order is the most successful way for an industry to raise a lot of money.
Yeah, and as we know, there's resistance to that, and people don't think it's for me. It's not for me. I can do it myself, or I don't need more business, or I don't know. I know there's a whole bunch of excuses why people decide they don't want to do it, but it'll be curious to see how this all works out, because we have that flower feeling, which I thought they were coming in like this. I didn't quite.
Oh no, we're going the same way. That flower feeling, I've been a supporter, and our family farms have right from the beginning. It's got the same purpose to raise funds to increase floral consumption and get more people to buy flowers every day. So I'm 100% behind that. There is a limit to how much voluntary contributions can do. So why I'm in favor of Floral Board is it could put that flower feeling initiative on steroids with many times more in promotion monies. But it would have to go through a referendum, and I think that what I'm advocating is if we can get show industry support just to have a referendum initiated by the USDA, then we can really get out there and have town hall meetings and have all kinds of meetings like this to hear the pros and hear anyone who objects to it, and really get all the facts out there. So when voters vote on it, they know everything they need to know to make their vote.
Quick question. What do we tell people that, because there is a naysayers, right? When it's, it never worked with Buzz the Bee, it's not going to work now. And they kind of, you quit before you start, and you don't believe in it. What can be different this time, Red, to support these type of initiatives? And I know that might be a difficult question or a loaded question, but it's always good to kind of give a new perspective.
Yeah, well, for sure, I know it can work. Promotion works, and there's so many great examples of successful promotion orders. The got milk, the beef, the apples. One really great one was the almonds. They relatively small nut, and now it's the most used commercial nut in the USA, and that was all because of a promotion order that they got. So there's no question that a promotion order and more funding can work. Now, now different people might have some opinions as to why they might not want to. Well, for one thing, some people will say it's a government. I don't need the government running my business, and that's absolutely wrong. The USDA only facilitates the referendum and getting it going. They don't run it. So it's just a government service to help an industry, and so there are many different opinions people may have, and that'd be the great thing if we can get the industry to agree on initiating a referendum. Then we can talk about these things in every possible venue and really get a thorough discussion of what everyone's concerns are and what their questions are.
You know, what's interesting, Red, is that with these tariffs that are happening now, I think the Floral Board would be 0.5% or something like that. You would have to contribute on the import value. Is that about right?
I think that's a great point, Will. I'm glad you brought that up, because the Floral Board assessment would be 1% of imports at the point of import that an importer would pay, and that's a fraction of the other variances you get. You get freight increases can be several percents, and they go up and down all the time. Mostly go up. Yeah. And now the tariffs are much more too. You're not talking about 1%. So in the scope of things, people wouldn't even notice it. It just gets passed on to the consumer.
They can absorb
a small fraction and it's the same effect of a tariff or a freight increase.
Yeah. And it's something positive. It's worth keep on doing proactive things for our industry, right? Very important. So Red, I'm gonna let you jump out. I appreciate your time again, and I appreciated this conversation and your candor as well. So I hope to see you at SAF, Red.
You sure will. Thanks, and great to be with you today.
See you as well.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Willie.
All right, so Willie, I'm gonna put you back in the.
Put me back in the.
Get him on the harmonica.
Yeah, right. Oh, he has it. Look, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, there you go.
Willie does not go far from his harmonica.
I'm surrounded by them. Come on.
I knew this guy since he was named Billy.
Yeah.
Oh, he was named Billy at one point, right?
He knows me that long.
Yep.
Yeah, this was the intro that I had for Willie. That was gonna be Willie's intro, right? The rock and roll intro. There you go. All right, Red. Have a good one.
Thank you.
See you later, buddy.
All right, I'm going to let you hang out here. Give me a second. I had a comment. Jeannie is saying, great to see you, Red. Jeannie Garbarek. I always have difficulty. Sorry, Jeannie, I didn't mean to mess up your name. But Jeannie is always a great friend and always tunes in. And how you doing, Willie?
I'm doing good, man.
Awesome, man. So, Willie, we are going to talk today about this. Let's see. Let me see if I can pop it up real quick. Boom, and we're going to bring in this, and we're going to bring in this, and we're going to talk about your book, right? Okay. Flowers Come From Where? Again, scan the QR code. Just a little bit, not even a pitch. My personal opinion of it matters is this is a great book to get your head around how the flower, just what Red was talking about, right? Where it was 100% locally grown, not U.S. grown, locally grown. You could only really sell what was in your area. And then it talks about that and continues going. But I'm going to let you do the job of that, Willie, of sharing your book. How did it transpire? I know it happened toward COVID. A lot of things happened during COVID, but I know it happened towards COVID. And then I got some things to ask you. I was highlighting the book yesterday, but let's start with how it started. Where did the book inspiration come from?
Well, I think the inspiration came from desperation.
Okay.
Because I was, look, I've been writing little snippets for the last 20 years on Flowers and Scents. giving my little opinions on this, that, or other thing. Or so, in a sense, I've been writing parts of the book for the last 20 years. You know, I was not thinking about it in those terms, but that's sort of when I thought about it. And people said to me, "You should write a book. You know, you write a lot. You should consolidate that all into a book." And I, I thought about the idea, and I said, you know what, I don't know, I'm not a writer, or I don't know about writing a book, but let me think about that. So, and then when COVID happened, I was stuck upstairs, locked in my room, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do for the next however many days? And I said, all right, look, grab your computer, start writing, just start getting it out of your head. And that's really how the process started. And what I realized I was doing in my interviews and such with Flowers and Scents, I was sort of creating an archive of the flower people, or the people in the flower business that I have crossed paths with over the years. And, maybe because of how long I've been doing this, I've sort of watched this whole transition. When I started, the imports just started back in 61 is when I say in the book that that those flowers that went to red from Sikh in Ecuador came in 1961 or 62, maybe for him. And that was the beginning. I moved to Miami in 78. So it was started, but it was just beginning really when that happened. So I got a chance to meet a lot of the people that are and were instrumental in making the business happen, whether that be wholesaler wise or domestically, or through local growers and or through the imports. So it really just sort of happened that way. I said, okay, let me write this. Let me just start writing it out, because I have a history, of course, in the business. I grew up in the business, and while I thought I was in the trucking business, I learned out I was really in the flower business, and was quite an eye opener actually. So I thought, okay, this is the time to sort of capture some of this because it's in my head, and let me get it out of my head. Now, with that said, I thought the book would be about 4 inches thick, that I would have so much to write about that it would I couldn't get it out of my head fast enough. And it's not. And it, when I condensed it down, I don't know, it's 90 pages or something. You can read the book in 3 hours if you sit down and read it. And what was important to me was sort of to capture the moment and the moments that have passed, and some of these people that like the New York flower market as one example.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have that highlighted right here. Page 7. So I'm glad you highlighted it. You mentioned.
Yeah, that was really special, and we would haul these flowers up there. It was only 2.5 hours from Vineland, where I grew up, where the flowers were grown. But you'd load the truck and send it up to New York City, and you had all these old names that just line the streets, the Pennocks and the.
So let me read a little expert here. Do you mind?
Go.
Okay. These local flowers were exclusively heading to wholesale florists in the biggest cities on the East Coast. Here's where we find many of the family names of wholesale florists important to the industry: Pennock, Ziegler, Seeks, Delaware Valley, Carbone, Berkeley's, Cup and Cup, Riccardi, Seagrove, Fall River, Hillcrest, just to name a few. The largest concentration of wholesalers was in the New York City flower market that existed on 28th and 29th Street in Manhattan. While there are still some vendors on these streets, the property value and the challenges of running an operation in the big city have, for the most part, ended the market. So many names to remember, like Associated Cut, Mutual, Rallis, Velacos, A Black, which is ancestry to Jet Fresh, Sauter, K&T. As a young man, I would load the trucks in the Vineland and then on occasion ride with the drivers to deliver the loads. This was a good practice to see if the order in which you loaded the truck was in line with the actual deliveries. It was also time for young men to learn a few things about the Big Apple at 3 a.m. And then I'll read this as well because it's just fun. All sorts of things are sold on the streets after midnight. The classic image of a man walking up to you and asking if you might want to buy a watch as he opens his overcoat to a real collection of dubious, good word, Willie, shiny things. I'll skip the rest of it, but it's really cool. And the reason why that touched me was because we, as a passion project, as our company, we run the NYC Instagram, and I see it to be such a cool, eclectic NYC Flower Market Instagram, such a cool, eclectic place. So tell me about, continue your story. I'm sorry, I was just excited to read about it and highlight that. Tell me your stories and just share about the New York Flower Market.
Yeah, well, the market was, it was a special place.
Yeah, great history.
Just imagine, one of the reasons the family does not deliver in the market anymore. First of all, the market has sort of moved out of the market. The price, the value got too high, but and inevitably you didn't want to bring these big trucks into Manhattan. They don't fit very
exactly.
well. So, but yes, as a young man in New York City, you see all sorts of things, and some you shouldn't see, and some that were really creative. But just think about this truck rolling down the middle, literally down the middle of the street.
Yep.
Doors on both sides, shops on both sides, and you would basically, you had a team of people following you around. Okay, these 10 boxes go in that store, these 20 boxes go in that store, and there's people carrying boxes down the street, gladiolas on their shoulders and going every which direction.
Yeah.
And how we kept track of all the numbers is pretty amazing to me, because it was hard. You'd said, okay, many of these stores were closed, so our guys carried a big ring of keys that could open the doors to the various shops if they weren't open yet, and you put their 10 boxes in the cooler, or they didn't have coolers. Most of them didn't have coolers.
Yeah.
You just put them inside the shop, and if the guy came back and said, hey, there's only 9 in there, then it became an argument. Well, no, I put 10 in there. Well, there's only 9 in there. Well, someone took one already. Anyway, it was amazing. And what I like to say, and even in the book, is that the flower business is about counting. It's all about counting, because if you think about the boxes coming from South America, for instance, now, the boxes are counted, I don't know, 20, 30 times before they actually get to a consumer. They got to get counted at the farm. They got to get counted at the airline. They got counted on and off the truck, on the plane, off the plane, on the plane again, off the plane. The boxes are counted and handled and handled and handled. That's amazing that the numbers still work out. I remember as a young guy on the dock watching guys count pallets. Okay, got it. Pallets are coming off the truck, and the guy's like, I got it. Yeah, I got it. I know, I got it. I'm like, how do you got it? How can you count that fast? Well, look, there's 12 stacks or whatever, stacked by 12 times 2, or and back then it was fairly simple because you had full boxes and half boxes. That was about the extent of it. Now you can't count that way because the pallet could contain 90 boxes,
Yep.
quarter boxes, or 15 full boxes. So it got very different, but the book became became something to do and get it out of my head, like I said, and get it down on paper. And then, okay, you write a book. Okay, now what? So I wrote a bunch of pages. I got a bunch of Word documents here. And I said, what am I going to do? And somebody asked me, I forget who, said, well, who are you writing it for? And I said, well, that's a good question. Who am I writing it for? And I guess my initial thought was I wanted to write it to get it out of my head. And I thought the people that grew up with me in this industry, a lot of importers and wholesalers, would get it, would understand, the history and maybe appreciate how I put it together. And I did write it with that in mind, I guess. But I let my neighbor read it, a draft, and he's not in the business. So he said, well, look, it's interesting, but you make a lot of references I don't get. You don't explain it well enough, so I don't really understand what you're talking about. So I said, okay, all right, that's fair enough. So I went back and reread it and tried to edit those parts that were that I had made too many assumptions in, or implied too much. You had to know the business to be able to get this, and that helped me a lot, I think. And then it was a question of, okay, well, what is a book? What makes it a book? 1 page or 1,000 pages? And the answer was, by the way, Google said, as long as it has a cover, it's a book. So I qualify. But then it was, organizing the chapters and trying to figure out, and who did I leave out? Did I leave somebody out? As
That must have been a hard part because there's so many people involved, right?
Well, like we mentioned, the names of the New York market. I probably missed a couple names there, and maybe somebody will say, "Hey, what about me?" But I tried to, this is all out of my head. Okay, it's not a lot of research. It all came out of my head. So the names that I remember and the people's names that I remember and the people that I highlight in the book are people that crossed my path.
Yeah, and I'm paying attention to you. I'm just reading, parts of your book here, so I have it right here. So I have a part that's kind of cool, which I'm actually gonna, after reading it yesterday again, it's like, man, I want to reach out to him. I hope he's still around. And in 1967, David Shever, a graduate student in horticulture at Columbian State University, wrote a term paper titled Bogota, Colombia, as a cut flower exporter of world markets. The paper suggested the savannah near Colombia's capital is an ideal place to grow flowers to sell in the United States. So you experienced all that. You saw that happen. You saw that boom. And can we call it a boom?
Well, it definitely was a boom. I don't think it went off like a firecracker to begin with, but it was a slow boom, and it kept booming and booming and booming. David Chevers, yes. So yeah, he was a professor and had never actually been to Colombia. He just did this all out of theory and what he read and learned about. And that's where Edgar Wells and comes into the book into play here. These were all guys that were sort of poking around the business at that point, either theoretically or in actuality. And look, it turns out that Colombia is a great place to grow flowers, and Ecuador is a great place to grow roses, and we're now dealing with that as tariffs start to bite. How many people will start and say, okay, well, I'm going to start a flower farm because now they have a 20% tariff on roses. I can, I can make money doing that. And I don't know. The reality is they have all the better ingredients. They have better climate, better resources, more labor. So, those jobs are not coming back here. As it is, how many we're seeing growers in California disappear. Holland America, I think, is shutting down. So I mean, there's that's happening.
Did not know that.
So there's a lot. There's a lot at stake here with that. Anyway, let's not get too far into tariffs.
Yeah, let's not get in there. So my goal is really to, when reading this book and when I asked you to be on the show, is really to give an insight to it, inspire others to pick it up. It's what, $20 or how much is it, Willie?
Yeah, you can buy them $20 online. I think it is now.
$20 online. It's not making Willie rich, right? But it is just keeping it going, and you can scan the QR code here and check it out and buy it. But I just kind of want to run through the table of contents and really stop me in somewhere where you want to talk about. Okay, so chapter 1 is my flower story, Dutch and Italian influence, USAID, jet airplanes, which you have a great picture of this old, not a jet airplane at all, with boxes hanging out of it. The cocaine years, those, if you lived in Miami, you know what we're talking about. Some people did receive boxes of a little gift there, right? Willie, you'd be a little surprised with the FBI. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's stop there.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've been asked to speak at a couple different events over the years, and what people mostly want to know about is the cocaine years. They want to know about, oh, did you ever find drugs in your boxes? Well, yeah. All the time, for that matter. It was a real pain in the ass. It ruined my day. As I say in the book, Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel, flowers were on our radar, or their radar for sure. There was coke coming in unbelievable amounts in every which direction, in little quantities and big quantities. And I think I give 4 examples in the book there, where it's like I told, one of the stories is we were trying to figure out what to do between the governments and everybody else. And they said, let's put X-ray machines in. So initially they put X-ray machines in Bogota at the airport. And inevitably they were always broken. They were always broken. Then they put in sniffing dogs, and somehow all the dogs died.
Were broken too. Okay, they died. Oh my goodness.
Or got sick. Yeah.
Oh no. Okay.
So so then we decided, okay, we'll put the X-ray machines on our side, in the domestic side. And I said, okay. So we installed all these fancy X-ray machines at Fresco, which was our building that we imported into. And I said, okay. So I called all my managers in and I said, look, I give it about a half hour before they find something. I said, keep your eyes open, because it's the first day. And then I think within 45 minutes, bells were going off and alarms were ringing, and then people were sort of running out of the building. And look, there was drugs all over that flower business in the early 80s, late 80s.
Right.
It was everywhere, and many, anybody in Miami, any importer at some level not got in trouble, but got, found it. Yeah, and when they would call me up, I get a call from Canada. Oh, hey, good morning. We found some of this white powder in my box here. Okay, what should I do with it? I said, go to the toilet and flush it. And they said, oh no, we called the Mounties. They'll be in touch with you. Oh, great. So, I had to be in touch with all the important guys in Miami, those being the DEA, CET. There was drug task forces. There were so many different drug organizations that I had trouble, because if I didn't tell the right one, the other one would holler at me. How come you didn't call me first? You're supposed to, because everybody wanted credit for finding drugs.
The politics, right?
the politics of drugs. They wanted the benefit of saying, I found it,
Yeah.
So if I, I'm, what am I doing? I'm just calling somebody up. Hey, I got your number. I found some drugs. What do you want to do? And we found it all the time. And as a young man coming from college, I didn't know anything about drug smugglers. So I had to learn the hard way. And it was a little scary, because they were carrying guns. I wasn't.
I even remember till like 2010 or something, there was someone found a box as well. So it didn't stop right away. It kind of kept on going.
They'll continue to try. They found, they bring in bigger, and they would send in 4 shipments on 4 different airplanes, and figured that a couple of them would get caught, the other ones would get through, and they're still a winner.
And I've heard of the prong sticks, right? A stick that had some prongs that would go all the way through.
That was the most evil thing ever.
Yeah, you're ruining the flowers.
It would ruin the flowers. It would make a mess in the boxes. So what happened is they started out with very small ones. They were about, 8 inches long, that would go through a 7-inch box. Right. So they would take this little spear, if you will, and it had some rings cut out in the end. So if they punched it through a bag of Coke, when they pulled it out, the rings would contain the white powder, and they would say, okay, we found it. But you can imagine, they would these agents would show up and just start poking boxes, pallets worth of boxes, boom, 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 boom. So you're breaking heads, you're breaking stems, you're making holes in the box, you're making a mess. And then they thought, okay, well, I can't do that fast enough. So let's get a big one. And they got a big probe that went through a whole jet pallet of, what are they? There is 7 feet high or something like that. So it would go, they would jump on these things, because they were literally, 8 feet long, and jab the whole pallet at the same time. Yeah, so that was ugly. And X-rays sort of got rid of that. They did that more before the X-ray machines. The X-rays sort of did the job. They pushed it to other places. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha. And then, so let me keep on with the table of contents. I do see that you have your book with you, so I assume you want to read something. But we have Breeders, chapter 6. Chapter 7 is Hard Goods. Then the next chapter is California, Foliage and Greens, Bouquet Makers, Armellini's get-togethers. I've heard those. Those are infamous. Yeah. The internet, which that's pretty cool to chat about a little bit. Tell us about the internet. I know you were kind of one of the first guys goes off always to what you've done with media using. You were the first website to ever really have a chat and a blog and a news, really media within the floral industry. So share a little bit about that chapter 12.
Well, the internet, look, the internet made things happen that couldn't otherwise happen. Flowers and Scents being one of those things. But it's really that trifecta of internet, credit cards, and overnight delivery. That trifecta of events or services really changed the flower industry, because you could then put a box, you buy it on the internet, pay for it with a credit card, and have FedEx deliver it to your door. And I think that was the most grand thing that happened in the grand scheme of things, that they could do that. Not that it's the best way to sell flowers, or well, maybe a good way to sell flowers, but it's not a great way for the flowers to travel. But it works good enough that look how many websites there are out there that offer that exact service, right? Mm-hmm. You can order stuff online. It comes from a grower somewhere, domestic or international. You can pay for it with your credit card, and FedEx will deliver it to you, or UPS, or any number of companies. So that really, really changed the picture. And much like your other interviewee from 1-800-Flowers, his take on Jim McCann, that is, his take on AI is pretty eye-opening, because he figures it's going to be as big or bigger radical change than the internet itself was.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So AI is going to be something interesting, because it'll, internet. It took a person to do it, right? And still does. When it comes to a website or managing, how all the insights of the headaches of managing. Now AI could develop a website in minutes. Yep. So it is going to be very interesting. Even Red Kennicott just mentioned, or vaguely I believe mentioned, just AI, how much is going to change things. It's going to be really impressive to watch.
Yeah.
And soon, I believe in 6 months to 10 months to a year, it's going to be a drastic change with how intelligent these things are going to be.
Indeed. Well, let me read a little bit from this book.
Go for it, Mr. Willie.
This what goes all the way back to the beginning.
All right.
In our large trucking family, once you were able to lift a bushel of gypsophilia, baby's breath, you were part of the workforce. When you could lift a bushel of gladiolas, then you were considered a man. Growing flowers in the northern climates meant there was only production in the summer months. While there was a limited greenhouse production, it was not enough to keep truckers or growers busy in the winter. There was always work to be done when your family's trucking business is in your backyard. Trailers to be cleaned, floors to be swept, trucks to be moved, and much more. All of us Armellini boys, Richard, Willie, Stephen, and David, could drive semis before we were 15. Our sister Judy helped Sarah, our mother, with the much cleaner, more domestic jobs. When you mix 4 boys with a lot of trucks, you also get a lot of grease and any number of sticky things that would make our mother demand that we undress outside if needed. More than once, there was a trail of grease tracked in, leading right to a specific bedroom, making it hard to claim innocence, although we still did. And lastly, summertime meant flowers were growing and trucks needed to be loaded. We all worked on the loading docks as summer jobs, receiving flowers from the local growers that delivered to us. Our childhood friends did not like sleeping over at our house because our dad saw them as additional labor and would have them working as well.
Great. I could just see the picture of, that's not my room.
No, it wasn't me. Yeah, well, look on your shoe, you're on. Yeah. So, yeah, and we, at one point we had a monkey. We had
You had a what?
A monkey.
Like a little monkey, like
a real monkey, yeah.
Okay.
It was a spider monkey, and I remember that we also had a collie. So my brother Stephen, I believe, strapped the monkey on the back of the collie, and they went into the garage, and both of them came back full of grease. So a collie with nice long hair full of grease, and a monkey that wants to touch everything was full of grease. Anyway, those are the crazy things that you do when you grow up.
What was the monkey's name, Willie?
Cheetah.
Cheetah. Cool name for a monkey. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Wasn't
had
that,
we
wasn't
had a
that the
couple.
name of the monkey in Tarzan? No.
Yes.
Yes, there you go. See, that
How
ages me a
appropriate.
little bit. That ages me a little bit, Willie, huh?
Yeah, well, Tarzan goes back a long way.
Tarzan does go back a long way. So,
Yeah.
Willie, what's your favorite chapter of the book?
For me, probably that first chapter where I talk about my childhood, because it sort of sends me back there.
And what have people said about your book? I know, and I hope I do encourage this. There have been companies that have bought 20, 30 books at a time because they're sharing it with their employees. So what has been the response of certain companies? And how's it been selling? But what has been like the aha moment for most people, other than the cocaine days? But how has been the aha moment for them?
I would think, while I don't get a lot of feedback, honestly, I would like more feedback. But what feedback I've gotten, particularly when those people call up and say, I want 10 books. Okay, great. And then call back and say, I want 10 more. So I'm like, well, what are you doing with these? What? I'm delighted you're buying them, but why? And mostly what they say, look, I'm giving it to old employees. I'm giving it to new employees. And there's some people that have retired that, that I think would like reading this. So, it's been interesting. The comments have been sort of far and wide. Like, the comment about, when you're old enough to lift glads, you're a man. I got a couple of people that have quoted me on that one.
That's fine.
So it's rewarding to get it out of my head. I didn't write this book for praise or for money. I wrote it to get it out of my head.
Yeah.
And the title comes very appropriate because people don't know where flowers come from. Right?
And I think it's very important, Willie, what you're doing here, because it's keeping a history of our industry. So I appreciate that you wrote it, and I appreciate the book. So thank you.
Yeah, it is that. It's a history lesson, and I'm happy that it's in print and out there. So it'll live beyond me.
Yeah, it certainly will. And Willie, what's next? Remember, I'm trying to name the next one "Flowers Go Where," but I'm not sure if that's gonna pass. But I'm not asking for any license.
Well, I've had a number of people say, "Oh man, you could have written more than that. You got a lot more."
Yeah, I think a next book's coming, Willie. I think a next book coming. So tell me about that.
I don't know. I don't know that I've got any more in my head, but it's recalculating in my head, if you will, because it goes on. I'm going to say up. I'll see you there. I'll see Red there. So I go to these shows, and so it lingers on. I guess I have to take it from there and go forward.
Cool. So let's show real quick where they can get it. Again, just scan the QR code, and I'm going to give this little image to Willie, so you'll be seeing it in his emails or on his website or what have you. Sure, so you could just scan it, go buy the QR code, and let Willie. And if you want to bulk order, you could call Willie for a special discount. Just kidding.
Or if you want to, I still have some hard copies. If you want a signed copy.
Yeah. Oh, look, I have my signed copy. So
right.
There you go.
Send me an email, Willie@flowersandcents.com. Send me an email.
And a tip as well: if you see Willie at SAF, he might have a couple in his bag. So
you see me, I tend to carry some with me. So I'm trying to get rid of them.
so just ask them, reach out to them when you see them, and
I'd like a copy of your book. Great, give me $20.
There you go. Give me $20, and you've got it, right? And I know Red was like, oh, he published it, so I'm pretty sure Red's gonna pick up a couple. Not putting you out there, Red, but
no, Red's got a copy. Don't worry.
Oh, nice, fantastic, good. So, Willie, anything else you want to say, man? I know you're going to be at SAF. Red's going to be at SAF too, and thank you for SAF for sponsoring these shows. So, anything you want to say? Any final thoughts?
Well, yes, thank you for having me on here to do this. I'm not a big promoter. I don't promote my book enough, so I'm glad you give me a little extra promotion here. I think it's an interesting document that has some interesting little tidbits in there that you might want to know. And if you're in the flower business, I would definitely read it. So, no, I think thank you for your time and for your willingness to talk about this, and we'll get together and do more good stuff.
I do have to say that I was the one that approached Willie about it. So Willie is a humble man, so he didn't reach out to me and say, "Hey, put me on the show." It was it was me reaching out to Willie because I think it's important that we continue to share the history of our industry, just like New York Flower Market, continue to keep a memory of it, and even our industry of where we were, where we are today is so cool.
Yeah. It's been a long journey, and it's not over. So
journey, man, and it's not over. And it's I remember as a salesperson before I knew the history of complaining over certain things, and I'm pretty sure the old dogs were looking at me like, "Yeah, you punk," because there's not a lot of complaining to do when you're just pressing a button and that thing is delivering to somewhere else today.
Yeah, it has changed a lot for sure. So,
oh, for sure. So, Willie, one final question, and just doing this to get everybody's thoughts. Why do you? Because I know you do watch a Bloom show and you support us. Why do you watch a Bloom show?
Because it's interesting. Because you created it. You created something and gave it a name. So you breathed some life into it. So that's why.
Appreciate it, Mr. Willie. So, Willie, I'm going to put you in the Bloom room, man. Thank you for your time. I'll see you at SAF, and I look forward to catching up.
You got it, buddy.
All right, give me
Bloom room. Is there flowers in the Bloom room?
There's no flowers in the room. They're virtual. They're virtual. Just imagine there's flowers around you. And you can hang out, and we can talk after if you like. All right? See you soon in a minute. So, everybody, an honor, right? It's just really cool to have years and years of experience on this call. I won't say how many combined years because it's going to age them, but they wouldn't be ashamed of it. But I think it's over 120 years of combined history in the flower industry, even more really, because they grew up in it. So it's just really cool to see again. Even after so many years, that they continue to push for the flower industry. They continue to do things, not only this book for Willie, but his journalism within the flower industry, right? That's going to create a history book of all the pictures and videos that Willie's done. Red Kennicott continuing to support advocacy in the flower industry and having such a good giving heart when it comes to that. So it's always, for me, it's almost invigorating to talk to them because it really continues our mission as New Bloom Media in really supporting the floral industry and building a community and a way of communication that connects all sectors to information, all sectors, everybody from florists to wholesalers to growers to entrepreneurs coming in onto the flower industry. So we really appreciate everybody that chimes in. Everybody that watches, everybody that supports, shares, and on. And I thank you all for that. I do want to thank SAF for sponsoring this show the last couple of months. Why? Because SAF is having an awesome show at Phoenix next week, and they do what we believe in, right? They do exactly what we believe in, and that is build community, connecting people to information, innovations, to each other, to education. And it's such an important part of continuing a sustainable industry. And it's really important to be there from any walk of life. If you're new to the industry, great, because you learn much more. If you're not new to the industry, great, because you learn new things. So I do encourage you to chime in and join. And then let me see here. We are having a new segment. It's called the Blooming Voices of Our Industry, and those are going to be correspondents. So our first correspondent, and we have about 4 lined up, and they're going to do a monthly 10-minute episodes. On August 8th at 1 p.m., Joe Don, the past vice president of HEB and the past president of IFPA Floral, will be joining us, and he's going to be doing this every second Friday of the month, and we'll be talking about AI, technology, supermarket, consumer trends. And I think it's extremely important to have a gentleman like himself with such great experience bringing those updates. Remember, this show is about the floral industry. It's about for the floral community, by the floral community. So we really, really encourage you to chime in. And we're going to also have Bill Schaefer, Melinda Knuth, and a couple other people that bring a different perspective, right? Bring science, bring the business of. So we're really thinking about just really this next year, really promoting and really focusing on the business side of flowers, right? So chime in, ask questions, and always reach out to us. If there's ever anything you want us to cover, we really would appreciate that, because we're only human. So sometimes we run out of topics to cover or people to reach out to. And as we journey and as I journey through this industry to learn more and more and more and more, it's sometimes good to have a little direction. And like, hey, talk to this guy, talk to this person. So if you ever see me at a convention and you say, hey, you could improve it by this, right? Next year, what we're going to focus on a little bit more is California. Someone approached me at a show and said, hey, you should cover California because you cover a lot of international. And hey, I took it as good advice, and I really appreciate that advice, because we should focus a little bit more on domestic as well, just for the history of it, so we don't forget about it. I just want to give you a QR code here for Phoenix. Again, 400 plus professionals, 20 plus education, competition. It's not too late. Get some points on your hotel, great hotel, Marriott, get some points on your flights and show up. It starts on Monday, I believe, and you can leave on, I think it ends on Thursday. So it is well worth your time to show up, be a part of a community, learn, and continue to grow, which allows us all to bloom. So without further ado, I want to say goodbye and thank you for your time, and hope to see you soon at the convention or on our next episode. Take care, and you have a good one.
Dark blue, showing if they connect them blue.